Now, if I were to ask you, you've announced an overall increase in expenditure. You've even, I think, put in an increase in subsidy payments. And the general expectation was that your government would attack subsidies.
You see, I have provided for the constitution of the Expenditure Management Commission.
Yes.
And that will go into this question. Now, how do you rationalize the subsidies? That's the real issue. Last week, the Prime Minister had taken a detailed meeting on how to do it with regard to the various proposals under Nandan Nilikani and others that the UPA government was working on, whether you could link it up with that. Now, we had certain problems in the past, but I'm glad the Prime Minister and the government are looking at each one of these proposals with an open mind. As far as subsidy bills are concerned, the food bill, for instance, most of the states have not even got their lists ready as yet.
No, but you're still providing for a higher subsidy
No,
than in the interim budget.
You see, we are providing for it because we have to provide as far as actuals are concerned. So when in November we will reassess for the grants, we'll then realize how much are we able to save. And therefore, some of the expenditures we still have to undertake. Because I have a lot of liability with regard to Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, which was promised in the Reorganization Act. And therefore, all that will come out of whatever is spent less. And less spending is because some of these schemes states are not able to implement.
The other one on which, and you're also the Defence Minister, and you've also increased 5,000 crore increase in defence acquisition budget compared to February, over and above last year.
The reason why I've done it is, you can't have, out of the 2,25,000 which was provided, which I've increased by 5, if you take the non-planned expenditure, a very large part goes into this. You have 75,000 crores left for planned expenditure, the acquisitions, of which 70,000 is committed payments.
Yes.
Therefore, you have 5,000 crores left.
That's right.
Now, if you need something more for the armed forces, you certainly have to provide, and they must get the first right. So therefore, we had a little leeway, and I provided for 5,000 more. In case some of the deals go through, and they need to foot the bill, they'll have some flexibility left.
One of the big issues that was constantly debated in the run-up to the budget was this whole business of retrospective taxation. Now, you haven't actually done anything about the existing cases. You've said, let them run their course. And even on the future, you haven't strictly ruled it out. You only said a high-level committee will examine it.
I can't in my budget speech take away the jurisdiction of Indian Parliament. Indian Parliament has an authority to legislate. It has an authority to legislate even retrospectively. So the best I could do as a government was that our government does not really believe in this, and ordinarily we are not going to have retrospective taxation which creates a fresh liability. The word is fresh liability.
Yes.
Assuming, and I'll give, to meet your question straight, assuming a tax has been collected for the last 30 years, and some tribunal or court takes a view that there is a flaw in it, so I strike it down. Do I refund back those thousands of crore, or do I have a retrospective legislation and legitimize payments already collected, which is permissible?
Yes.
But do I today legislate and say, for the last 20 years, people will have to pay 10% extra? That we don't believe in doing, because that unsettles business completely. So I have done two things. I have said for the future, we don't believe in this, so we would not be doing it. If under the old law of 2012, fresh notices are being issued, they won't be issued. The assessing authority has to first go back to the CBDT, and CBDT will lay down policy guidelines how to examine it. So we don't want any new problems on this front. As far as the old problem are concerned, they are pending in courts or tribunals. They'll probably run their course. And therefore, when they run their course, we'll follow by whatever verdicts that come.
And you think this will set at rest people's concerns that have been expressed?
You see, India needed to give the message that we have a civilized jurisprudence or a civilized tax policy. And therefore, I just could not go about criticizing the previous government and doing nothing about it.
Yes.
So I have left one part of the problem to be settled by a judicial mechanism. The other two parts I have given a comfort level to. And I hope people have faith in the Indian economy and its decision making.
You've also increased your assumptions on revenue from disinvestment, and you're already into the fourth month. And I think this is an all-time high in terms of targeting for disinvestment. What gives you the confidence that you will be able to do it?
You see, I've always believed that any form of reform is an art of the possible. So you enter into confrontations on day one, you won't be able to do so. So if you mention the disinvestment is a part of my proposals in the budget documents, it was not a part of my speech. Because people were not getting many issues to disturb my speech. So the moment I would have said disinvestment, some disturbance would have started. So I decided to just put it as a part of the budget documents. Now, you have a large number of PSUs where you have a flexibility of divesting for 5% or 7-8%. And those transactions have reached a fairly advanced stage. The market is at an all-time high. And if there was a great time to divest, it's today.
So use the opportunity.
And therefore, use the opportunity, do it as an art of the possible. Don't make a show and a song and dance about it that you enter into confrontations on day one. Therefore, you see, if you see one of the reasons, there are some important reforms I have announced in this budget. But to give a comfort level to all, I had to, and I believe in that, I only wish I could do more. For the average taxpayer, I didn't want to burden him. So I have helped him. Political parties are in power in some states or the other. MPs come from region. And I've been more than fair.
You scattered institutions across the country.
I had a map of India in front of me.
And if some state... towns everywhere.
And you see where they needed it. For instance, West Bengal. If healthcare is needed, it's needed in West Bengal, it's needed in Jharkhand, and these kind of areas, it's needed in Jammu and Kashmir. I picked up, you see, if I had to create textile clusters with central assistance, which are the areas which I picked up? Bareilly, Zari, Varanasi, the weavers, Lucknow, the chicken cotton, Srinagar, the pashmina. Now, these are all great products, but they need a national support. Now, irrespective of whether those communities vote for me or not vote for me was not an issue. So, if I can create at least 10 clusters of these traditional Indian arts, I think it's a good economic message to send.
Apart from hitting products which are seen to have a negative impact on health, you have hit mutual funds.
I have not hit mutual funds. You see, the figures disclosed that most of the investors were large corporates. And this route was being used, the concessional tax used, for hedging purposes. Now, this was not the purpose. The idea was to give a tax release to a small investor, not to a large person who just parks his money. Sure. So, parking money in mutual funds and use it for hedging purposes, the tax administrator's view was, and CBDT was very particular, that this provision is being just misused by a few corporates, and the average, the common investor there was almost marginal, and therefore we could afford to get some taxation out of there.
You didn't think that you could get more revenue out of raising the top slab on income tax or doing something else on long-term capital gains to get much more revenue out?
You see, all these options are considered, and therefore you make a conscious choice. The conscious choice this time...
I think you want to give a feel-good to everybody in this budget.
You see, if you are, according to me, the most important part of this budget is the first 20 pages of my speech. Now, if you are able to carry those, then the rest, you don't try and upset the apple cart. And I've always said that you can't create a hostile environment and then say, well, reforms must go on.
One last question. You've announced a huge increase in transfers to states. Is this the transfer of centrally sponsored schemes? There's a massive increase, and the budgetary support. So you're just transferring this whole lot to the states.
You see, a large number
and
of money.
And the central ministries' roles will then be reduced.
The central ministries in that event will be dealing with the states, and after all, the implementation.
But the budget then goes to the states. It doesn't go to the central ministries.
No, it goes to the central ministries, which in turn pass it on to the states.
It's a pass-through.
That's a pass-through.
Any final comment to viewers?
Well, I hope we are able to get back our growth rates. And I hope, as far as the common taxpayer is concerned, I do believe that we can do much more for him. But I didn't have enough money to do it all that this time.
So you'll do it next year?
I don't know. I hope I have more money next year.
Thank you, Mr. Jaitley. Thank you very much.